So what's your name?
Paul Cavallo.
And where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Upland, California.
Yeah. What are some of the earliest things that you were into?
Masturbation was number one. That's the first hobby I had. It's the only one that's lasted with me my whole life. I like motorcycles a little bit.
So you went straight from masturbating to motorcycling?
It's the same thing. Actually, I would say it was a different muse, but it's exactly the same thing.
Well, what about any other hobbies that you had when you were a kid? Before motorcycling?
Yeah. Now, skateboarding was a big part of my life from the time I was in the 5th grade until I completely exploded my knee when I was 18 and really couldn't do that anymore. I skated every day of my life, every minute of the day that I wasn't in school or at work, I was on a skateboard.
How'd you get into that?
I grew up a couple miles away from Pipeline Skate Park, and that's what we did. We hung out at the skate park.
Did you know Miss Hoffman really well?
Oh yeah, I knew Mrs. Hoffman, and I knew Stan, her husband, and their daughter April, and whole family pretty much. I spent almost every day over there.
What were some of your early musical influences?
From hanging around the skate park during the 80s, it was pretty much all punk rock all the time. It was all about early days of not knowing anything about good punk rock. It was all about Sex Pistols, and then once you cut your teeth on that crap, then you start learning about. It's not until you actually experience some of the Southland punk rock of the Dickies, the Vandals. We had some good stuff out here. A great scene here in Southern California.
I know from my experiences in the 80s, it's not so diverse like it is now. Back then, you listened to punk, hair bands, or metal. Was there any kids that were hanging out that were into that metal shit?
If you hung out at the Pipeline in the 80s, you were listening to punk, and that was it. There was nobody else was really allowed. There was no other influences until later on. Yeah, the hairband guys hung out wherever hairband guys hung out. And if you were at the Pipeline Skate Park between 1980 and 1989, you listened to punk rock, and that's all there was to it. East Coast had the Ramones, and the West Coast had Dead Kennedys and the Vandals and 1,000 other bands. I mean, the East Coasters like to think that they invented punk rock. They can fight it out all they want with fucking the English people. We had the good bands. That's all I have to say. Nothing against the Damned, nothing against Stiff Little Fingers, which to this day I still go see them every time they're in the U.S. because it's one of my favorite bands ever, Stiff Little Fingers are awesome. I don't know, musical influences at once getting outside of my tiny little Inland Empire skate park upbringing, my life changed quite a bit. I got a lot more diverse. I started to actually listen to other music and not hate anything that wasn't what I thought fit the mold.
What was one of the bands that kind of broke that mold for you?
Beastie Boys. Beastie Boys changed my whole life. Up to that point, absolutely fucking hated rap music with a passion. Could not stand it. Paul's Boutique came out. Beastie Boys mixed up some shit that it was just amazing. Mike D snaps through that whole thing, all of his tracks that he wrote the loops on, taking vintage funk and even southern rock and classic rock, mixing that in with hip-hop music. It was just a totally different vibe. And they had everything from 70s funk on there to just their freestyle rap. It was all really good, and that kind of opened my eyes to other things.